in Hollywood. Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Songs that made the hit parade. Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days. Welcome to the Early Watch. I am your host, Ed Horse, and we have some excellent guest hosts with us today. We got Just Dano and Tony, both from Illinois. I think there's some kind of conspiracy here going on. Both of you guys from Illinois being the guys that like to jump in here.
The irony is unbelievable.
And incidentally, it's Hellenoise.
Hellenoise.
I officially changed the name a couple of years ago.
Right? So how are you guys doing this morning?
I'm fine.
I'm doing just dandy.
Just dandy.
You get that? Huh?
Yep.
Everybody's laughing, so they all must have gotten my corny humor.
Oh boy. Let's see. Monday, May 20th, 2019. And what kind of news stuff do we got going on today? Have you guys heard of anything happening over the weekend?
Aside from the abortion thing, no, not much. There's one Republican, quote unquote, in Michigan who says Trump committed impeachable offenses.
Oh yeah, but that's just they've been saying that though for 3 years. So
saying it and then actually putting formal charges in motion are two very different things. You say it just to get the audience that's listening to you or the audience that's present to go, "Yay! You're my special politician! Yay! You're the super snowflake."
I know we had Armed Forces Day. Any of you guys do anything for Armed Forces Day?
I didn't even realize it was, to be honest with you.
Yeah, May 18th on Saturday was Armed Forces Day.
Sadly, no, I did not. But no, I was also not aware. Is locally not in my little town, but in the big town not too far, they didn't do anything either.
Yeah, sadly, a lot of people don't because they're like, oh, these guys are still alive and they got jobs and So, and that's kind of what Armed Forces Day is supposed to be: people who are currently serving, currently wearing the uniform. And so that's the one that always never gets any attention, and it's always on the third Saturday in May, so it's always on a weekend, so people don't usually get to take a day off for it, right? So so it gets much less appreciation than what it should, I think.
I don't doubt that, but it's getting way overshadowed by Veterans Day and Memorial Day too.
Yep, being so close to it.
Especially Memorial Day.
Yeah, Memorial Day's here in just next Monday, so just a week away really, and it definitely gets overshadowed by Memorial Day, and then Veterans Day I believe is in November, and but still, the Armed Forces Day, that's the one day that I see that doesn't get the recognition that it really deserves. Every year it seems just to come and go, and hardly anyone even really knows or does anything about it. And personally, I would like to see that change because I think this is one of the more important days that I wouldn't really call it a holiday. I guess technically it is, but it's I don't know. It's a day that we should be doing being thankful for the people who are currently wearing the uniform. That's what this day is set aside for. So
sorry, I would have been more along the lines of being set aside for being thankful that one of those wearing the uniform came back freaking home. Get her kids.
Yeah. Yep. Then let's see here. We also got Oh, what did I just do? Let's see here. I had a little story that I thought was interesting. Let me see if I can find it again. So, a tow truck driver pulls up to a woman's car. He refuses to tow the car because she has a Bernie Sanders sticker on her car. Did you guys see this one?
No.
I didn't.
Oh gosh. So here, I'm just gonna play a little thing from it. Okay, let's see here.
Fair use policy.
Truck driver under fire for refusing to pick up a woman with a Bernie Sanders sticker on her car. She called for a tow, but when he noticed the sticker, he told her to call the government for help and kept driving. The side of my truck says Shoopy. It doesn't say freebie. You know, and every time I've dealt with these people in recent history, I get burned. Because he works for a private business, that is not against the law to not tow a car. Carolina tow truck.
That happened in North Carolina. That guy's my hero.
No shit.
I just want like even his is like, oh, every time I deal with these people I get burned. Like the guy was awesome. Guy's absolutely awesome. That guy's hero tow truck driver out of North Carolina. Yep. We need more people like that in this world.
I don't know who was speaking at the very end, whether that was the tow truck driver or a reporter who said, and it's not illegal. It all comes down to that.
Yeah, the reporter. Yeah, right.
Oh.
They have the right to refuse service to anyone, right? So.
Yep.
But no, but there is a thing that when you actually read about it, that guy literally, it's not because that she's just a Bernie Sanders supporter. It's like he's like literally every time I go to tow someone's car that's Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or any that have stickers like that, I get accused of denting their car or scratching it, and then they don't want to pay their bill, and they're all liar. Like he has like a pretty he has a really good reason and a lot of history to back up his reason, So I'm like, oh man, like yeah, if I was dealing with these people every day and I noticed a definite trend, then yeah, I might want to be like, no, that's not worth it, to deal with these people.
DT Piper posted in the Gun Channel's chat that about Switzerland passing gun control.
Oh God, yeah, they backed the EU regulations, right?
Well, they were forced to, the way this article reads.
Who posted the article?
DT Piper.
Okay.
There's a link in the chat.
Oh, okay. I was just scrolling down trying to find
They
it.
tightened the gun laws to conform with European Union regulations. Almost 64% of voters in Sunday's referendum supported tougher restrictions on semi-automatic and automatic weapons. Well, so 64% of Switzerland said, we're no longer going to be a neutral country that has stood neutral and on its own for over 200 years. We want to be invaded by Islam. What is the fastest way we can get to that goal? Let's ban our guns. All right. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, but that actually was initiated when they signed the agreement to become part of the EU. I mean, once they did that, this was already in play. I mean, it's not like this is really new. It's just the implementation of it is new. But yeah, the people that read it and signed it, it was there.
Hey, people in Europe, do you feel swastikas burning onto your flags yet? You're handing over everything Hitler wanted.
It is everything she wanted.
Well, and it is very, as far as, all these countries turning into one massive, it wasn't just an economic bloc, which is what it was only supposed to be. It became vastly more than that, because it was supposed to give them the ability to have some weight in regards to international trade, rather than having to deal as individual countries with, other much larger by in terms of economics than they individually are themselves. But but they gave away far more than that. That was just, the starting point. That was not the ending point. But it's very much, shaping up into a totalitarian system.
Like I said,
A one world government.
Yep.
like I said, they're giving over to what Hitler actually wanted.
And there are only a few countries that have resisted this so far, Poland being one of them. And
See, unlike Switzerland, Poland wasn't all like friendly with the Germans, right? Like Switzerland was, like they weren't all buddy. So Poland, man, they really know what it's like to get their ass kicked and handed to them for like a long time, right? So I don't know. I hope they don't do the same thing.
Well, France should be well aware, seeing how it happens to them every time there's a fucking skirmish.
They seem to have very short memory spans.
No shit.
The French?
Yes.
So I want you to do something. I want you to type in war, battle, or like battles the French have lost. Like type in that. Like type in battles the French have lost on Google. And tell me what pull up. How many? We're going to try a little experiment for all you people at home that think that the French always surrender and that they like lose every war and all that. Just go to Google and type in like battles the French have lost. And then tell me like how many pulls up. Like, and then out of all those that have pull up, how many of those have been in the last, let's say, 100 years?
I see somebody who just drop kicked.
Because that would cover all of World War I, all of World War II, and hell, in the last 100 years, that would, all World War. Oh, yeah, World War I started when
1914.
1914. So let's say like the last 150 years. That would include like the Napoleonic Wars and yeah. So I'll tell you what, when you do that research, then all of a sudden you come out with like, man, actually the French really have not lost that much. Like they really have not. For some reason, all of a sudden one day they got really pussy and started to like basically surrender before they even like started a battle, is what you come to find out. But when they actually battle and they actually go to war, the French usually doesn't lose. Is the research that I found out. I was shockingly surprised. But when they actually do go to war and battle, they really don't ever seem to lose.
Well, except, in major wars like World War I and II.
They didn't lose.
Their battles that they actually did, they won though.
Well, no, I'm not talking about individual. I mean, winning the battles, I don't want to say they don't matter because they do, but it's winning the war that actually matters. But when your country is completely overrun and invaded and then destroyed, and then you eventually end up winning. But what did you win? You won back the territory, but they've destroyed all your assets, or a lot of your assets.
Maybe it's some kind of crazy French, like art of war, fight the enemy where they're not. It's kind of a philosophy. I don't know, but yeah. I always thought the French were like always surrenderers and until I actually really read about the subject, and I was like, holy shit, the French actually has like kicked some major ass, and they really haven't like lost military battles. The only thing they do now, like they just give up now before the battle even starts. It's like,
as I know, England was never able to conquer them.
Yeah,
way back. But at the beginning of World War II, when Hitler invaded France, man, it was like unbelievably how fast he got through that, or his army. They were wholly unprepared for what Germany did.
I want to think that it's like gun owners here in America, that there's a lot of people in France that are like some really tough, hardcore guys that we just never hear about them or see about them because it's not put on the media, right? So there's like some guys over there, they're good guys. They're not the ones that want to surrender. They're not the ones that want to give up their gun rights. You know, they got real men over there still. It's just we just don't hear about them.
And they're probably a much smaller percent of the population. I mean, whatever percent they are here, they're less than that over there. And that just for I mean, when you're raised by a mom and dad that are already culturally weakened in regards to, you know, what is a man, what is a woman, and all the other things that are involved.
Well, you know, to the French too, if you think about it from their perspective and looking at what happened to that country in World War II, didn't you try to avoid it at about any cost?
Well, you would think you'd learn enough as far as like, because each time it's like, oh, we didn't know they'd come into our country. We thought they would respect, the peace treaties and so forth. And it's like, well, you know, if something happens to you once, okay, that might be a surprise, but the second time cannot be a surprise.
Now, I believe France and Britain together declared war on Germany, not the other way around.
Correct. After Germany overran Poland and what was the other country? I mean, so yeah, it was already, Germany was already shown themselves to. They were just winding up.
But remember, they didn't have to like overrun Austria because they were greeted with welcome arms and parades in Austria, flowers from them. So yeah.
But with Hitler's speeches about what his intentions were, and then his showing his willingness to do it. Obviously, you don't want to do what France did, is wait till they're at your front door and then try to defend yourself. I mean, that's the last place you want to begin your defense, is at your front door. You want to do it at the edge or outside of town. That's where you begin it.
To the French's side, they thought they were protected.
Very
mistakenly so.
By what and by who?
The Maginot Line. They thought that would be uncrossable.
But for what reason?
Because of like the World War I trench warfare, it was uncrossable. And they didn't think German was going to be able to put together this artillery and blitzkrieg across.
They also didn't think they could come in through the Ardennes forest.
I mean, that's like thinking that, you know what, we've hit the maximum levels of technology that we can ever possibly see, moving forward again. Therefore, all technology is frozen in time. I mean, that's
there was people back then who still thought flying was like magical and like witchcraft.
Well, that's fine, but they still understood it existed and it was real, even if they thought it was magical, because they could see with their own eyes that there were planes in the skies and they landed and they talked to the people that froze it. Yeah, I understand that they didn't get the technology, they didn't comprehend it. That's fine.
Before France was invaded by Germany, nobody had done that like that before. The Blitzkrieg thing was
actually the last person to do that was Genghis Khan. So so it wasn't really in any kind of recent memory, right?
I mean that's like saying that before the Gatling gun, no one was able to fire more than one shot without having to totally reload the rifle. Well, of course, it's called advancement in technology. I mean, just because it's never happened before, I mean, things are always moving forward, getting faster, more efficient.
You've forgotten Browning made a repeater before the Gatling gun.
Yeah.
Right. I was just using that as a general example from back in the 1860s.
I just want to make sure that Browning's dad gets his due.
So I want to make a little comment of something I read, and I thought it was just real interesting because I honestly don't remember the movie that much, but I know what the movie was about. And it says, too bad they conveniently left out what happened at the end. When Schindler liberated his Jewish workers, he gave them all firearms. There you go.
Of course, that wouldn't make it on the big screen.
and maybe my memory is faulty on this issue, but I do seem to remember there being, it being mentioned, although it may not have been shown, that aspect of Schindler giving some small arms that were found.
Yeah, I don't remember the movie that much. I saw the movie probably 20 years ago, Dan. Like, it was like a long time ago. And so I honestly don't remember the movie. But, like I said, I know what it was about, right? It was about Auschwitz and stuff, right? So
No, it was like from a further ring outside. It was about trying to save. Initially, he was a very greedy man, and it was just about trying to make profit, a war profiteer. It just, what made him a little different is he evolved out of that war profiteering into seeing that there was a whole nother cost that he was turned a blind eye to, and that's the human cost. And when he acknowledged that within himself, then he started getting workers that he actually didn't need, that he was actually just trying to keep families together and so forth, and literally, keep as many people alive as possible. One day at a time, not knowing if they would make it to the next day. That somebody may come in and machine gun all of his workers.
yeah, I just I thought it was I don't remember any gun thing. I don't remember at the end of the movie him like handing out guns to his workers, right? But I know like that was a thing that happened in history, like that really happened. But I don't remember that being in the movie. And then
It was not shown.
saying, like, there's a reason why they didn't want to put that.
Yeah, there was no scene showing him, having a truck brought in with crates or stuff like that. No, that was not shown. It was mentioned from him to the manager, and I can't remember the actor's name, Ben something or whatever, who was the manager of the factory. About I've made arrangements. There are some arms here to try to protect yourselves, and it was just a line, in that conversation that he was having at the end with his manager. So that's why it can very easily get not noticed.
Do you ever think about the World War II thing and the Nazis and wonder how in the fuck a human ever became, or how human ever came to that reasonably mental state?
Eugenics and all that kind of stuff, that crazy stuff.
Yeah, the mass murder, and I mean, granted, the leadership was somewhat insane.
Have you ever heard like hell hath no fury as a woman scorned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that can also go for a nerd, right? So hell hath no fury as a nerd scorned, and Adolf Hitler, I think, was a nerd. And I think he was always the butt of everyone's jokes, always the picked on one. He was always like the unpopular, like he was just that guy. And I don't know if it was just a certain group of because he was Jewish, right? So he grew up obviously, I think, around Jewish people, right? So I think that he probably had this so much resentment or something, or blamed his life or parts of his life or something on those people. That's the only thing I can think of rationally. Either that or the guy was just straight up psychotic. Well, he was anyway, but that's the reason I think he was specifically after the Jews, is because he was Jewish and he had an axe to grind against them because he was just a nerd. He was the guy who was always picked on and stuff. So he was like, you guys ruined my life because you called me big-nosed Adolf or something.
Well, I wasn't really pointing at Hitler. I mean, history's already judged.
You mean the people tolerating it?
Yes, the population of Germany, who either A, went along with it, or B, just turned a blind eye. In the end, they didn't have a choice.
I mean, if you look at the rise of Hitler, it was when Germany was going through the extreme, what they viewed as draconian measures economically that they had to endure in regards of reparation to the damage they did in World War I, and unemployment was extremely high, and there was a lot of death and destitute, on the streets. And he was, raising a fist against that. We don't have to be under the thumb of these foreign powers that are crushing our country. We can rise from within and become great. And that rang in the hearts and minds of many German people.
What it was, honestly, is that there really, on the Treaty of Versailles of World War I, there was way too much imposed on the German people. There really was, like, too much at one time, too many reparations, too much reparations, and there literally was people in Germany starving, just like you see on TV nowadays of these, people in Africa. People in Germany were starving, and so when a guy came along and said, "Hey, not only can I put food in your belly, but I can turn us into a great, powerful country again," and like, people really listened. I mean, they needed hope. They were willing to grasp at any straw because it was so bad there. That's how he got into power. If they would have had a two-party system like the great country of America, Hitler never would have got in power. It's because Germany became a cesspool, and all these liberals eventually got third and fourth and fifth party systems put into place, and then that's how you get a guy like Hitler. History, people, history.
Isn't that just a variation of kind of what I said, though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that still doesn't.
I just gotta say, in my own layman's way, you're just too fancy talk for me, Dano. We got some rednecks out there that need to hear it from the shoe container. Yeah.
That still doesn't explain how people were willing to turn a blind eye to all the atrocities.
Okay. Well, I mean,
did we know about the atrocities in Guantanamo Bay? Or that were happening there and stuff like that. That our own country. I didn't know about it.
I mean, it in a weird way, I suppose it can kind of be used, or Abu Ghraib prison. That there were Americans, that were aware of both of those things, and but most Americans didn't. Now, I'm not going to say that's applicable 100% to Germany because I don't know if it's applicable or not. But what I do know is that just using our own country, and I'm going to use now. This is going to be a stretch. So let me get this all out there before you slam me down, is that with our own welfare system, is that if the party that is pro the system that you're benefiting off of, that you are significantly more likely to vote to keep that party in charge if you are getting a benefit off of it, whether it's economic, whether it's social, whether it's maybe the fact that you just have a job, period, versus no job. Even if it's not that great of a paying job, you're more likely to say, yeah, I'd like to keep that party in charge. And that we know that's true in our own country. And we know that at the time, at Germany at that time, the current government was not helping the people in any way or shape or form. They were trying to live under the Treaty of Versailles. And Hitler showed them an option, another way of which they could directly benefit and get back the former greatness that was theirs, both culturally as well as economically. And of course, there were little programs like the extermination of unwanted peoples, but that was to cleanse the system for greater efficiency. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that was the thought process, or part of the thought process behind it.
Another thing too, though, is that very early on, before Hitler even took power, he started to basically, for lack of other words, exterminate opposition, that media opposition that would write bad about him. So a newspaper was writing bad about him. Mysteriously, that whole newspaper's like headquarters burned to the ground. And this was before Hitler won, right? So if he was doing that stuff just while he was running and not even like in charge yet, imagine the kind of media censorship he was doing once he was in charge. He was basically in control of all radio, all newspapers, all print, and anyone found printing anything that wasn't basically like already proofread and authorized by some sort of Gestapo guy, you're going to get in trouble, right? So like you're probably death penalty. So they had full control of that kind of media and all that kind of stuff. So if you're 100 miles away from Auschwitz, what the hell? How the hell do you know what the hell's happening in Auschwitz, right?
And if you're an unemployed younger male, and you have the opportunity to become part of a group that makes you feel proud to be a German, i.e., the brown shirts, and then you're given, you feel proud that that you are of certain German lineage, and to be part of this group, that's why in the military services, our current members is they're very proud to be part of this larger system. I mean, that's kind of a natural thing, but they can be tasked to do things that are wrong and inhumane, in which case the brown shirts were. And they went, doing things like burning down the print shops, harassing and making examples out of the Jews, as well as Germans. I can't remember the exact phrase or the English translation of it, but the German citizens themselves that were considered undesirables, the mentally ill, the physically ill, basically the mouth eaters. Those
that was really part of the eugenics right there.
Yes, that was the other half of the eugenics. I mean, the one half was to how can we genetically get to blonde hair, blue eyed Germans back?
Yeah, okay. Along that lines, and to interject a little bit of humor. Now imagine Jesse Owens winning the gold at the Olympics, Hitler getting annoyed and leaving. What's that car ride home like?
You could hear a pin drop, I would imagine.
Well, in that Olympics, wasn't that the first one that was like actually like aired on television because of the technology of German technology? That was all German technology that made that worldwide radio broadcast, because they broadcasted that worldwide by bouncing it from antenna to antenna to antenna and off of our atmosphere, right? Like having a repeater that was so big, they started bouncing stuff off of our atmosphere to get over the curvature of the horizon. And so that was like a real thing back then. I mean, that's the first thing that people like aliens in space are going to see of us are those games. Like that Olympic Games, that's the first thing aliens are ever going to find out about our civilization.
That and Hitler's speeches in his image. Because they were broadcast at the same time.
I think only the Olympics were broadcast worldwide. They did something.
I think it was broadcast worldwide on the radio, from what I remember. The TV wasn't broadcast worldwide, but the radio was. Germany had radio antennas so powerful they could literally bounce the signal off the atmosphere like way farther than anything else, and they could basically loop the signal around the globe now.
I don't know. There was a lot of things that the Germans came up with that were astonishing.
Like, look at their jet engine fighters, like their jet engine planes. Like, that wouldn't be until 10 years later that, like, after the war, that Americans were like, okay, here's our jet engine planes. Like 10 years, and they were flying these in World War II, right?
I've seen somewhere where Brits had one, but I don't know that it ever went into production. But they probably stole the idea from the Germans, so.
It was probably just the captured Germany or shot down one, yeah. I know they were way, way ahead of their time on everything. I know that their implementation of using slave labor to try and make their stuff really hurt them.
Yeah.
Because they got sabotaged at every point and every turn. So I found that quite interesting. Really ironic. Like, oh, you're our prisoner, but build this very critical airplane part for us.
Well, I mean, but the quality control, and of course, this varied from factory to factory, as well as probably from department within department of those factories. but where the penalty for because the Germans were very good in documenting everything, like serializing things, so they could trace it back to not only which factory but what shift and what department made this, and whether it was shells or whether it was hinges or something else or electrical device. If they had a run of bad items, that they would go make public examples of these slave workers and execute them.
Just imagine being one of them slaves. You're sitting there working on this part. I got your special part, you cocksucker.
A real popular story that's like I think it's the reason it's the most popular because it really does like have like real truth behind it, like factual truth, because they've like tested for it and found out that it was like they really did this. But the Jewish prisoners would pee in like their industrial glue because all like their industrial glue factory was all ran by like Jewish prisoners. And so all these Jewish prisoners would pee in Germany's industrial glue supply that was used from everything from like their airplanes to just like everything. It was like their main industrial glue factory. And all these Jewish prisoners were going around peeing in all the glue, and that pee in that type of glue specifically did make it break down over time and like hold less of a bond and all that stuff. So I thought that was just great.
You're cruising along in your ME 262 and the freaking wings fall off.
Yep.
Oops.
Yeah, but when all your men are off fighting, and the only ones left are those with either physical or mental issues at home, and because of your culture, you really don't want to put women in the factories because they, in large numbers, were not willing to do that, unlike Americans. Somebody's got to make that stuff.
Don't even say that. That's a scary thought. That is a real scary thought.
Yeah, if they would have put their women in the factories instead of using slave labor.
Oh, if they would have had that whole like we can do it too attitude, right? That whole rosy.
No, I'm not talking about feminism. I'm talking about using workers that at least won't sabotage.
Well, that wasn't feminism. That was U.S. propaganda. That wasn't feminine. That started with U.S. propaganda. We can do it. That wasn't women saying that. That was the U.S. government putting that in the minds of women to get women in the factories.
Right, but feminism started long before that. Back in the the late 1800s. It was around with the women's right to vote thing.
Yeah, just imagine a German Rosie the Riveter, like a whole program like that, and just imagine if that's a scary thought. Like that is really scary to think of what might have happened then if they would have had a programming like that in place pretty much the whole time of the war.
You just imagine, their quality going from poor to crappy to suddenly superior because they weren't using slave labor for critical items.
Just one thing that's always baffled me think about is just imagine how this world would look had Hitler not invaded Russia when he did.
And that
the biggest mistake ever in history.
I'd say so. Yeah. Had he not invaded Russia until he had conquered the rest of the world, which he was well en route to doing, or he was going to bomb Britain off the face of the fucking planet, I think a lot more of us be speaking German.
Well, he was always his own greatest enemy. As far as overestimating his own capabilities, let alone overestimating the capabilities of his loyal yes men supporters, and not truly understanding the weakness in using yes men in positions of power and how that can destroy what you're trying to create, because they'll tell you yes, no matter how ridiculous your proposal is. They'll tell you yes, you've made X amount of parts that are sufficient, that are good enough to go to war, when in fact you don't have hardly any. They'll lie to you just to make you happy. Yes, we've met our quota.
I really have no idea what he was freaking thinking in Russia, because he had a freaking armistice pact with them. Then he turns around like 2 years later and invades the thing, and that was foolish.
Yeah.
Yeah, while half of America's attention was still on Japan, right? You know, basically most of our entire Navy was still on Japan, our Marines on Japan. You know, we actually weren't like we were a big factor in Europe, but not like as big as a lot of people think. You know, like a lot of people think that it was just seemed to be like all us over there. Like, man, there was 45,000 Canadians dying in one day. Like everyone had troops over there. Everyone was fighting over there. Like every country was contributing over there in Europe. You know, in the Pacific, now that was mostly us. We were mostly kicking ass in the Pacific. Like we will take credit for that.
Well, there's two aspects to it. You know, there's the human aspect, which is what you're addressing, and then there's the materiel aspect. And in Europe was won through American manufacturing. Pure and simple. I mean, just numerically. I mean, it's not that the English weren't producing things. No, they were. It's just they were also getting bombed at the same time. Where the United States was not getting bombed at all. We were actually growing and getting greater capabilities.
Even Mexico had troops over there. All sorts of South American countries, like everywhere in the world, had troops over in Europe. Everywhere. It was unbelievable.
There were a couple of South American countries that were pro-Germany.
Yep.
Argentina, being one of them. I forget if Chile was another one. And that's why after the war, you know, it was South America rumored as to where all these Nazis who couldn't be found disappeared to. They rumored.
Have you watched that Hunting Hitler show, Dana?
I have some.
Certainly not recently.
I've seen a couple episodes. I haven't like watched the whole series or anything, but I have caught a couple episodes. I think the ones I saw were probably some of the more recent ones. I don't know, man. Like, you know, I wouldn't say that they have like concrete proof or anything, but they seem to have some good, I don't know, I guess credibility. I don't know. There's some things that are just really hard to explain. I don't know. If you listen to that story they tell, I don't know. They got a picture of a guy that looks just, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
It would not surprise me one bit if not only Hitler and a bunch of other higher end guys were like, yeah, this is it. Like, we need to get out of here. And then we're like smuggled out of the country in a submarine. Let's see here. Well, that was our talk on Schindler's List.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Let's see here. What else? There was another one out there I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Pancake-coated bacon strips. Have you ever heard of anything ever in your whole life that sounded more delicious?
Or artificial?
No, like you take a piece of bacon, okay? You dip it in some batter, you throw it on the griddle, you let it cook like a regular pancake. Like the piece of bacon's already like pretty much cooked, right? Like already crispy. You dip it in your pancake batter, throw it on the griddle, let it cook up into like a long strip pancake looking thing, and it looks just like a regular pancake, but it's got bacon inside. And then you dip it, and since it's long, it's kind of like a long flat French fry right now. And then you just dip it into your little sauce, your syrup or whatever that you like, and there you go. Have you ever thought of anything just like, man?
Well, on a slightly related topic, I can't think of anything more unnatural than the meat they use for bacon. I mean, because it doesn't taste like that until it's injected with all sorts of chemicals. Oh, I'm sorry, flavorants.
Well, like the Applewood, whatever stuff. Like, I've had regular bacon. Regular bacon's like good. I mean, it doesn't matter. I like the Applewood bacon too, but still, like bacon's bacon. Any bacon's good bacon. You've had like real bacon before, right? Like that's straight off like the pig, right? That's not.
Nope.
So it's usually cut out like way fatter from a butcher, a lot bigger pieces. So I mean, you're just getting, I don't know, probably a lot more fat on it, everything, and yeah, it's bacon's bacon, even without any kind of artificial store bought stuff. Bacon is still
Right.
damn good.
But that's what gives it that taste is what they put into it. That's not how it comes. Otherwise, it would taste the way the rest of the pig does.
No, bacon still has like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just the crispness of it that changes the texture and the flavor. Then, so I'd still argue bacon still tastes differently, but I don't crisp up other parts of animals.
Because it is treated meat versus a pork chop is not treated meat.
What
Well,
the
just
hell?
with like salt, right? It's mainly just salt.
Okay.
Isn't it? Wasn't that the original way to make
Nitrate, but
it? Was just
yeah.
salt?
Miss Smythe. Salt plus a few other little things, but mostly salt. But that's still it's if you know, I mean, that's significantly changing something. It's like saying a piece of candy, well, it's just mostly sugar. And bacon is just pretty much mostly salt. It's fact, it's almost like its own salt dispenser.
Oh. So Dano, I know I heard that Uber made some changes and some payment changes or something. And Uber's not as good as it used to be. And making money. Because I was like, man, I want to do Uber. I want to drive around all day. So I came up with like another way. I saw this post. It gave me a great idea. And for you, I think you could do it perfectly, Dano. So this is a new idea, breaking idea, like money-making idea. Like we could all do this. A bunch of us could do this. So for $250 an hour, I will pose as your couples therapist and convince your loved one they are wrong about everything. So me, I'm only going to charge $75 an hour. I'm going to be pretty reasonable. I'll work for $75 an hour, 1 hour minimum sessions. You just come to me. I will convince your loved one they are wrong about everything. That is just great.
And like any true therapist, when they say 1 hour, they really mean 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they got to write up their notes.
So have you guys seen that self-defense video that's going around in that phone store, that Quick Draw guy in the phone store?
I have.
No, I have not.
Okay, so, all right, so warning, this is going to be some graphic content because this is a self-defense situation. You will see a little blood. It's not like gory, but there is blood in it because someone does get shot. So if you don't want to see that, turn away from the monitor. Let me see, this was on John's page. So let me go to his page. There he is. Awesome guy over there. Okay, turn up my bandwidth. All right, let's screen share this. Share. All right, this is. All right, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so this is like a phone store or something.
Last chance to exit out of the video if you're sensitive.
This is a phone store. You got this guy in here kind of acting suspicious, looking for a phone. Got the salesman here, guy behind the counter over here. Keep your eyes on this guy behind the counter. He goes, oh yeah, it's a nice phone. Oh, look at this phone. Yeah, oh yeah, real nice phone. Yeah, let me just pull this gun out of my pocket. Boom! Oh, I'm done. He's down. That man down. This guy right here was like John Wick. I'm not sure if he learned his quick draw from watching reruns of Miami Vice or if he's actually been to a James Yeager class.
So, which guy shot him? The guy in the gray T-shirt or
The green t-shirt behind the counter. He pulls, like, the second this guy pulls his gun, this guy has a half-second draw. If you time it, half-second draw from a sitting position. Like, watch him. He's just like, it's crazy how fast he gets his gun out on this guy. Like, if you watch the guy in the green, boom.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the other guy's head is in the way to really see what he's doing.
That was just an amazing. That guy was fast. Like, I bet you this guy's never practiced like quick draw in his life. Honestly, I think this happened in like Mexico or Brazil, or this was like Brazil or something. I think.
Yeah.
And I bet you this guy's like never practiced this, never practiced quick draw. This might not be the first guy he shot.
Well, also because he's sitting down behind that thing, he may have it in a position where he can what I'll call put his hand on the grip. And so
I see his hand go right to his appendix area really fast right before the gun pops out. So either he grabs the gun under the counter and then somehow, for some reason, goes to his waistband and then draws. Because if you watch it, just watch his right hand. And right before you actually see the gun, his hand's coming from his appendix.
Yeah, but the guy's head is in the worst position at the right possible time.
We'll probably get more cameras out of this. We'll probably get some more footage from this probably. I bet you this place has more than one camera. So watch this guy's right hand right here. Boom.
See, his head's in the way.
Yeah. It's hard to tell, but either way, I mean, this guy, his draw and he did not. He saved everyone's lives, is what he did, because he did not hesitate. He didn't flinch. He just, man. That guy. Oh, and that was on John Napolitano's page. You guys should go follow John Napolitano. He's a USPSA shooter. He's one of those guys behind enemy lines in New York, and he's a good guy. Has a good page over there.
On the side there, he said he thought he had a gun out too already.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. All I know is when I blew it up real big, before I see the gun, I see his hand coming from his appendix. So I don't, again, it could have been under the counter. He could have been sitting on it. Like, I don't know. Either way, that guy was fast. That guy, no matter where that gun came from, he was fast and on it. And he didn't come out and say, hey, stop. Like, I got a gun. Freeze. Like, no, he came out and he took care of business.
He's probably fucking unemployed today.
Shit. In Brazil, he just got a promotion. Like, that guy's, he's like, oh, you're assistant manager of the phone store now. That owner's all happy. He's like, oh yeah, we know we have a reputation. We're not going to be getting robbed now for a while. Like, that store owner is like super happy about this. He's like, oh man, we're not going to have any little thieves in here for a while now.
That was pretty impressive because he had the guy shot before the guy even really had the gun out in a usable position.
Like, that gun was just barely really being exposed and starting to come out. Like, that guy didn't even get the chance to point it at anyone yet. That's what I'm saying. And it's not like that other guy was like, he was in a hurry, right? He was like, oh, I'm going to rob you. Let me pull out my gun. And that other guy was just so smooth and just one shot too. He only took one shot, just one shot. Like, that's it. Boom. And the blood loss was just amazing. Like,
yeah, there was a large pool of blood there, so that one shot was a good one.
Yeah,
it either hit a artery or a kidney.
It looked like a stomach wound to me, where the blood is on the shirt and everything. It definitely looked like it was in the gut.
Yeah.
That was just absolutely incredible. That's circulating around on the social medias right now. Most people are pretty impressed with that. I know I am.
You just hope that if you're ever in that position, you're that freaking smooth and quick.
Well, the other thing is that he was kind of perpendicular to the gunman, where the guy out front in that, I'm assuming it's a gray T-shirt, that's the guy who he was probably pulling the gun on. So the bad guy was pointing the gun on. So he had an advantage of, you can't outdraw somebody who's already got a gun pointed at you. But if he's pointing at somebody else, then you might be able to. In this case, he wasn't pointing it yet, but he was in the process. So, and you can't track two different people at the same time as an attacker. And so he focused on the guy that he thought was the greatest threat to his successful life of crime, which was the guy on the other side of the counter.
And knowing what kind of medical treatment they have there and stuff like that, that guy probably did not, with that amount of loss of blood that fast, I'm highly doubting that guy survived that situation.
He may have very well bled out long before he ever got to any sort of treatment. I mean, although the human body does contain, I mean, to say like, well, how many quarts or whatever is almost kind of misleading, because when blood is laying on a flat surface, it can be a massive surface, that the human body can bleed and yet still survive visually.
Yeah. You dump a pint of blood on the ground, it's going to turn into a great big freaking pool if you're on a nice level surface.
And don't we only hold like 5 pints on average or something like that?
Pints? I thought it was. First of all, I think it's liters, at least, and I thought it was.
No, you're right, Dan. I'm thinking wrong. It was liters. I think it was 5 liters, right? So, I think that's what we hold, is 5 liters, right?
Can't remember if it's 5 or 8, but yeah, it's something like that.
Anyway,
but yeah,
donate a pint or two.
Is like nothing, yet looks like a lot on the floor.
Pink Panther in the chat saying Wednesday the 22nd is the 4th hearing of the Ohio HB 178 constitutional carry bill, and the first hearing for opponents to the bill. Pray for flat tires and car troubles go to the opponents. Ponder is saying that the guy heard the entire conversation between the body on the floor and the dude in the gray shirt. So there's some probably nervousness on that guy's part that got picked up on or something like that. You're lucky, because I rarely go back and look at the chat.
I think Patrick thinks I'm un-American for my bacon stance.
You are.
But hopefully I have
living if you're not going to eat bacon.
I didn't say I didn't eat bacon. I rarely eat bacon, but I acknowledge that it is what it is.
Freaking pound of bacon in a skillet's a snack. Now, I really don't want to divulge how many heart attacks I've had, but bacon surely didn't have anything to do with that.
We got some bad news coming out of Brazil today. So the Brazilian prime minister or president, whatever he is over there, he did do some good stuff recently and like relaxed a whole bunch of gun laws,
right?
Stuff. But just a little less than just, I guess, a couple hours ago, there's been another attack in Brazil in a bar. At least 11 people so far. So they're not getting those guns out there fast enough to the hands of the public.
Well, and even then, I mean, if like in this country where they have restrictions, like you can't bring a gun into a bar as a legal holder of a gun. Well, as long as you do have no carry zones, they'll continue to be victim zones.
Yeah.
Well, and here we don't really have factions that are willing to kill each other to make a point yet.
Oh, we do. They're called gangs. It just, they don't dominate areas where I live or where Tony necessarily lives. But I know areas where they do, and I'm sure Tony does as well.
I'm talking politically speaking.
Well, whether it's politics or economics, they're killing each other.
There's
Gangs would work on a microcosm scale, yeah. Same idea, just different reasoning.
So I here's another story I just came across. I want to put out there. So a man with AR-15 and 314 rounds of ammunition arrested after allegedly brandishing a gun at a motorist. So they show a picture here. It was one AR-15 with 2 magazines, 4 100-round packs of ammunition. So, and then it looked like he has that HK USP compact, 40 cal maybe, and with 3 magazines that looked like it was in a locked case. And so a Vermont man traveling with loaded handgun and an AR-15 was arrested in Reading yesterday after allegedly brandishing a firearm at another driver. Alan Cournoyer, 39, allegedly displayed a gun while driving his Toyota Tundra in New Hampshire on Friday, Massachusetts State Police said. Another driver called Massachusetts State Police after Cournoyer had crossed the border into Massachusetts, saying Cournoyer was driving erratically. A state trooper located Cournoyer's pickup truck and pulled him over on I-93 in Reading. Upon investigation, Trooper Joaquin Miranda located 2 8-round magazines, fully loaded. Oh, it was a 45 with 45 caliber ammunition, an HK USP 45 caliber handgun with an 8-round fully loaded magazine in the weapon. Like look how evil this all sounds. Like this guy is ready to do a massacre. 30-round magazines and 314 rounds of 5.56 ammunition inside the vehicle. Because like no one takes 300 rounds with them to the gun range. Cournoyer was not licensed to possess the firearms in Massachusetts. So this is a guy who was just crossing through the state, like how we talk about when we travel, right? Like across the country. So he wasn't licensed in Massachusetts, but they don't mention how you have free right to travel through a state, right? Like that.
If I can interrupt for a second, it almost implies that he was licensed somewhere else by the way they say it.
Yep. And then Cournoyer was arrested and charged with 6 counts of illegal firearms and ammunition possession, including illegal possession of an assault weapon. Charges relating to his alleged brandishing of a firearm are being considered by authorities in New Hampshire, where that incident took place. Now, keep in mind, this guy, this is hearsay, right? We don't, no video evidence, no nothing. This is all hearsay. This could have been a road rage incident. This guy could have had nothing more than, let's say, a Glock sticker in his back window. And someone called up. A guy waved a gun at me. Oh, like, what was the color of the gun? Black. I mean, and that's all it took, right? Like, I mean... So be careful out there advertising you're a gun owner on your vehicle, because all it takes is one little road rage incident or something like that, and it would be very easily for someone to phone in and be like, oh, this guy pointed a gun at me. The gun was black. There you have. There's your evidence. That's all you need. Oh, he identified the weapon. He even knew it was black because there's only, a 50-50 chance it's going to be either silver or black. So,
Yeah.
Well, you forgot the trans color option, silver and black.
So he's scheduled for arraignment in Warburn District on Monday. So that's today. So I'm going to try and follow up on this story. And I suspiciously think that like pretty much everything's going to get dropped, but this guy's life's going to be severely affected and hurt by it. But I'm willing to bet that everything against this guy gets dropped. Judging by the guns he has, the way it was packaged, the look of his AR, like this guy was not a criminal. I'm telling you right now, this guy wasn't a
To make
criminal.
the case for painting your color and not your rifles or pistols a non-traditional color like pink or chartreuse. It's like, well, it was a black gun. Well, clearly it's chartreuse.
That could be a thing. Like that very well could be a thing. Because, like I said, how easy is it to identify a firearm and lie about it by just saying, "Oh, it was a black handgun"?
Yeah, don't be racially profiling my guns.
This is a perfect case to get before the Supreme Court.
So I have a feeling everything's going to get dropped about this from this guy. I have a feeling that the whole thing was like a road rage incident. And like this guy probably just pointed at the other guy or something, and he probably has a NRA bumper sticker or something. And that's you watch what comes, because we've had similar incidents happen like this here, and like they always turn out the exact same. Like the guy with the guns was completely innocent, and all it took was just someone being like, "That guy has a gun."
I do want to say, when you said, well, he may have just pointed it. That's way over the fucking line.
Pointed a finger at.
And like how, I don't think so. I highly
pointing a gun at somebody.
No, that ain't what he said. He said pointed at, not pointed the gun at.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like he probably just pointed at him. It was probably just a road rage thing and yelling back and forth. "You cut me off, you asshole," and flipping each other off. That's probably because that happens a lot more than what people think. Interactions between two people like that. And if someone like is kind of vindictive enough or something, or just maybe has a certain political association, and they look on your car and they see, NRA, Glock, Smith and Wesson, even a Trump sticker, whatnot. I mean, gosh, how many people like carry guns, and out of those guns, how many of them are just black handguns? It'd be very, very easy to fake a thing and just accuse someone of brandishing a weapon. You know how easy of a charge that would be to really just falsify?
Firstly, they shouldn't be allowed to make anonymous complaints like that. Secondly, if you're traveling with the Glock, NRA, all them crappy stickers on your car, that's just saying break in here.
And how do you make a phone call to like 911 without it automatically picking up your actual real number?
Hell, I don't know.
I mean, you may not give your name, but that doesn't mean they don't know who the phone line, who's paying the bills for that phone.
All I know is that it's a travesty what's happening to this guy. Like I said, I'm going to follow up on it, and I have a really strong feeling. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's like 90-10 that this guy's completely innocent of everything. Just judging by the way his guns look and this whole situation, the way everything's worded, like so intentionally against him. Oh, like, yeah, this is a bad thing that's going on right now to this guy. So I'm definitely going to try and keep following up on this. Things like this are what really interest me. Like news stories like this, because it's just one guy, right? It's not a whole organization. It's just one gun owner, which could really be any of us, right? So those are the things I like to look at to really make people open their eyes, because when it's just happening to this like individual singled out guy, that's where it could be any of us that it's happening to.
Okay. Echo and the Bunnymen made a comment over on YouTube that I do have to agree with about just buying a burner phone at 7-Eleven that you pay for with cash. As far as
keep it around for just 911.
Well, I can see an ex-girlfriend or something doing like that, but somebody that's involved in a road rage incident, not if they're willing to go that route, they need to be hospitalized for mental illness.
People have gone that route and have gone farther as even ramming each other off the road and hitting like we've all seen the videos of how crazy road rage can get, where that started literally from, "Oh, you cut in front of me." Something as simple as that, like, "Oh, you got over in front of me and I didn't want you to," and then that turned into like basically homicides, right? Like, so I don't put it past it. But yeah. I mean, I don't know why people are like the driving bothers people so much, but it's definitely gotten bad.
But that particular stuff happens in the moment. To actually stop and get a phone, unless you have one already.
Well, I think that's what he's implying is that, you have one already because you may do nefarious things, or maybe you don't want girlfriends to have your actual number in case you dump them or whatever. I mean, there's various reasons people will have a secondary phone.
Or just your primary phone is basically a burner phone.
Yeah.
You just go to Walmart and pay cash, or 7-Eleven and pay cash to re-up the minutes. That a lot of people have that as their primary phone. So, I don't know. And even if the guy was willing to go all the way to court and lie about it and all that, who's to say a guy's not willing to see an innocent person go to jail if they're willing to kill each other and run each other over with cars? I mean, I have a feeling this whole thing, everything that's worded, if you saw what I saw, like the picture of the guy's guns and the way that they were packaged and everything, like this guy, it wasn't a criminal thing. Like his handgun was in a box. I don't know anyone who's like driving down the road, who like reaches under their seat, pulls out like their locked handgun box, unlocks it, pulls out their handgun, points it at somebody, and then like puts it back in their box, locks it up, puts it back under their seat before they get pulled over. Like, and just stuff like that. I mean, it's just too crazy.
Well,
like this guy was, like, traveling
topic.
to a range. Like this guy was going to training at Jaegers or something. I mean, come on.
A related topic that's come up over there, and it has to do with peaceable journey laws. And this is from Echo and the Bunnyman. I got to change his name. Either just call him Echo or just call him Bunnyman.
Hey, welcome back, Echo.
But I'm going to read his comment and then I'll comment on it. It says it's legal to transport a firearm that is legal in your state through a state that it is illegal in, as long as you do not stop other than for fuel and food. You cannot stop and lodge straight through. So I think I know what he's talking about. And there is a federal law regarding peaceable journey, and but the awareness out there needs to be this is that not all 50 states respect the peaceable journey laws.
New Jersey.
And, yep, that's one of them. But Cook County, Chicago, that's another one. This is very much of a, and just as using it as an example, is there's other laws that are federal laws that states don't necessarily honor. Like right now we have the marijuana is illegal thing on the federal level. Yet clearly there are states that have legalized it.
Well, isn't that the Firearms Owners Protection Act that allows us to drive with our guns through any state, Dano?
Yes,
Supposedly.
but it's only partially correct because it's not honored by all states.
Do you think that if we actually had that, like maybe printed out with us while we were driving, that would maybe help and to maybe just de-escalate some situation where an officer is like, oh, we'll just let the judge figure this out, versus maybe handing them a piece of paper that clearly, states and reads like, oh, this guy has the right to pass through the state with these guns.
No, your best hope is that your lawyer might be able to present it, and a judge after the first or second trial might be willing to raise the court to either a district court or at least the federal level, and then maybe have it overturned there.
So you're saying just make sure you don't speed or get pulled over in those states.
Yes.
Or like if you're traveling across country, bypass Illinois.
Well, I mean, but Illinois is a very long state, and since it's connected to the Great Lakes, I mean, it really has from the Canadian border all the way down to Tennessee, or excuse me, deep down in Kentucky. As far as, its reach where you have to go around.
If you have to drive an extra 1,000 miles, it's still going to be cheaper than the court costs and shit.
But the area, as an example, is it 80 that comes down towards your area?
74.
But there are northern routes that come up through Chicago, and then there's southern routes through Illinois. The southern routes, you're not going to have an issue as long as you follow, which is what I say all the time, because this is the actual rule, because this is what we have to do if we only have a FOID card, is make sure that it's in your trunk, that the ammunition is separate from the firearm, and your ammunition is in a proper container, and your firearm is in a proper container.
See, that one of the double-edged swords with the IDNR here is that the state law says it can be dismantled and rendered unable to fire, and it's legal to carry it that way in the car. But the DNR put in there, it has to be unloaded and enclosed in a case.
Right. So if you want to travel and not drive an extra 1,000 miles, just simply do that. You know, you're not stopping in Illinois. I mean, for any reason, you're just passing through. You know, why tempt the dragon?
Really, yeah. Fill up in Indiana or Iowa or Missouri if you're going that way, and if you're in Kentucky, you're pretty close enough to go around anyway.
You know, drive the speed limit, and if you need to get gas, you get gas. I mean, getting gas is not a dangerous task. It just, you know, don't stay overnight. Just get gas, get something to eat at the gas station, take care of what you need to take care of, get back on the highway, and keep driving the speed limit. And yeah, you're right. You can't be driving 10 over like you are in other places, because the risk does not equal the reward.
Just fill up and eat before or after you're in Illinois.
So is that a good case for flying, or is flying still just bad with guns? Like if you, like, let's say you had to drive somewhere that was like through like totally anti-gun states where that's like a real possibility, and you got to go shoot a competition or something, so you got to take like thousands of rounds of ammo and guns. And, you know, if you get caught in one of those states with thousands of rounds of ammo, you're, you know, automatically some kind of shooter or something, right? So what are we going to, like, is flying with that maybe a better option?
Good God, you want to pass through TSA with that?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm just putting it out there. Is there a case for where flying now might be a better option than if you have to go through, like I said, one of those states where it's that big of a concern?
I would take the gray man approach and not cover my vehicle with stickers saying that I have a bunch of guns in the car and drive speed limit.
I've never been a fan of putting any stickers on my car. You know, let alone things that might, you know.
Is that where you might want to put like anti-gun stickers on your car? Like I said, I've never. I want to fool you. Here's my Bernie Sanders sticker. Whack.
Whether it's, you know, political stickers, John Anderson for president, to show you how old I am. Everybody's saying, "Who's John Anderson?" But and yep. That's the.
Against Woodrow Wilson.
Yep. But anyway, yeah, peaceable journey. You know, and I can understand for people who are surrounded by states that respect, you know, their gun laws, is to assume that it's from sea to shining sea, but it's not. And that if you're going through states you haven't traveled through before, or to a state you haven't been in before, you really need to look up the gun laws in the state you're going through and the state you're staying at.
Well, you know, the unfortunate thing is that in all of these instances, we need to have a sacrificial lamb get it to the Supreme Court. And I hate to say that, because that means somebody's going to go through absolute hell.
Right.
But, you know, at some point, the Supreme Court's going to have to slap this shit down.
But for that reason, that's why I went through extra strides to meet and shake Otis McDonald's hand before he passed on some years ago back at the Prairie State Convention Center in Springfield.
I would have liked to have done that myself.
So I think this whole, you know, thing is also a good point on why you might want to have some kind of carry insurance. You know, some sort of 2A gun carry type, you know, CCW type insurance, right? Dano, don't you have a form of carry insurance?
Yes, and give me a second, and I'll tell you what it is from my wallet.
I'm looking at my USCCA.
Yep.
free gun mat on my desk as we speak.
Yep, and that's and now see if you were this guy and getting pulled over, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you got 300, 300 rounds of ammo in your car." You're like, "This totally evil person. We're taking you to jail." If you had concealed carry insurance, you could possibly be out of jail on bail this morning and back at home and not sitting in jail for for days still and stuff like that, because you don't have the money to post a $25,000 bail or whatnot.
Yeah. The question you asked, I have the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network protection, and they're all fairly similar, yet there are differences between them. So the devil's in the details. So whether it's this one or the one that Tony uses, or whether it's some other one, look at the details as far as what they cover. Also, not just if they pay, but when they pay it. Like, do you get reimbursed for bail, or do you get bail up front? That makes a huge difference.
USCCA is bail up front.
Right. I'm just saying some are different. I'm not saying yours is good or bad. I'm just saying they're different.
Along with the lawyers' money, because they have lawyers on staff.
Yep. And provide expert witnesses and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them do. So a lot of them really go above and beyond to help protect you. And
I would venture to say that some of these are just waiting for the perfect case to really bite.
And you mentioned offering expert witnesses as a tangent to that. And this is something for those that are willing to actually take some training on how to fight. There are instructors that are nationally known, and as part of successfully passing their class, they offer an ongoing service of they will be willing to testify on your behalf as to what you were trained on in that class on your behalf. So that's something that most instructors do not offer. I've had a class through Masad Ayub, so I have that privilege. He is getting older, but still, it's somebody I have in my corner. I also have another instructor in my corner. That's fairly well known, but not necessarily fairly well liked. But just because you have things in your corner necessarily doesn't mean you just like cards in a poker hand. You use the appropriate cards at the appropriate time. It doesn't mean you use them all.
I've had a couple of conversations with James, and I like the guy. I mean, perfectly civil with me. Don't understand all this vitriol against the dude.
Well, it's personality conflict. He has a strong personality, and that can cause conflict. People who just aren't willing to tolerate that, and I understand that.
Hey, listen, the simple fact of the matter is he has a dick like a boa constrictor and an IQ higher than Albert Einstein, and that just intimidates some of us.
Well, I don't know about that, but
his own words, Stan.
Yeah, well, and that just said now he has an ego as big as an elephant. I will attest to that.
His acting skills, kind of flat, but he was
sometimes you need to stand apart, right? Especially when a lot of the guys that you got your training from are all still training people, right? And so you really do need, in this world of training, you need something to distinguish yourself, especially to get people to fly or drive across the country to come see you. If you just want to be a trainer for your local county or state or something, and focus on that, that's one thing. If you want to be national and you want people that are flying all over the country or even world to come see you, you have to be doing something that really makes you stand out. You really do. You have to stand out from the crowd, or they're going to go somewhere else. That's the way I think it is. And that's why he is a larger than life character, because that's part of his. I think he is a really smart guy, and I think he really knows that, hey, this larger than life character I don't think he is necessarily that large of life character that we see on YouTube in real life. Like he doesn't strike me like that. He really doesn't.
He didn't me when I talked to him, but it was text, so I really couldn't, say that what he's really like that way.
I've had many conversations with the man, and I think he's probably above average intelligence. I don't think he's some genius or anything like that. And I think he has a unique product because he takes it. It's not his product. What makes it unique is he takes the best of a lot of other instructors that have come before him, and then some that are on the verge of no longer teaching, like Clint Smith, and takes a lot of that from other people and combines it into a unique package.
And if you think about it, Clint Smith's another one that gets some harsh treatment at times.
Yeah, and he's not, and people seem to forget that your instructor or your teacher is not there to be your friend. He's there to teach you stuff that might make the difference and keep you alive. That's what it comes down to. Not to be your buddy, not to stroke your ego, not to make you feel good about yourself, but for you to become a better version of yourself.
I think the thing that kind of sticks out to me is the fact that while this country is extremely polarized, even our side is polarized so much within itself. If this dude ain't my whatever, then he ain't shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot figure out how we got here.
Well, when I look at, if I think historically, just for a moment, historically, at least within my lifetime, I see, what I'll call the two-party system. Which party has drifted off? Both parties have drifted, just to be clear. Is the Democratic Party seems to have done the most drifting way out of the, to an extreme of their lane, where the Republicans tended to become more of a watered down version of themselves. What do you think? You all think?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you think of a Republican, think of a republic. When you think of a Democrat, think of like a democratic state. There you go. That's all you need to know. And then learn what a republic is, and learn what I guess democracy, and then learn the differences between those two. And then there you go. That should tell you everything you need to know.
But we don't have an actual, at least that I see, a conservative party in this country, which the Republicans used to have. A large part of them were conservatives, not all of them, but a large part of them. And that's what I mean. They've tended to drifted or been a little bit watered down.
Oh, times have changed, especially as Christianity and other religions have been more accepting of homosexuals and minorities and other things like that. Because conservatives have notoriously been really religious, right? Most conservatives were really religious, and as the churches have opened up and the religion has evolved, I think it's only natural for that conservative party to evolve with it, because it kind of fell back to those religious groups.
I don't know of any religious group that discriminated based on race. I mean, because as an example, Roman Catholicism is very popular in Central and South America and Mexico. It just, these different groups tended to drift towards different religions, but I'm not aware of any religion that either said or or acted upon, we're only white, or we're only brown, or we're only black, or we're
How about
only
ones that just are predominantly white, Dano, and stuff like that?
but a church is not supposed to represent a large geographical area. It's supposed to represent a neighborhood. So if your neighborhood is brown, then the constituency would be brown. If it's white, then its constituency would be white. If it's mixed, then it would be mixed. Regardless of
that, as there's been a correlation between the churches and these, mainly Christianity, becoming more acceptable to a lot of things and more open to a lot of different things, that the Conservative Party, right hand in cheek, has gone along with that. There seems to be a real strong correlation. And as far as and it's not just Christians that are conservative. So would you consider the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, would you consider that the majority of that religious population conservative? Because I know firsthand there has been a big disparity and a lot of racism that's gone hand in hand in there for a long, long time and is still going on today. So I
realize that's a religion that's dominated in your area, but when I say church, I'm referring to individual buildings where people go to pray. I'm not referring to the entire religion, of which, let's say, it's Episcopalian, to all Episcopalians. I'm talking about the individual building that's located in Mayberry RFD or wherever it is. When I say churches, I'm referring to that. I'm not referring to Roman Catholics or Lutherans or Presbyterians or Mormons. I'm referring to the congregation local.
For thousands of years, people of the Christian faith have went and did things that the Bible specifically says you're not supposed to do.
But the Pope said go do it. And the Pope at that fact was treated as infallible.
That, Christ was clear in the book that, shouldn't avoid the tax collector's house or sinner in another word. You should turn the other cheek. None of this fucking separation shit.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are still going that route. Others are being a lot more forgiving with things, and our nation is becoming a lot more forgiving with those things too, to an extent. Some to the good, some to the not so good, but it is what it is. I mean, if everybody in the Christian faith lived the lifestyle that Jesus wanted, I don't know, either we'd all be killed or this place would be a little different.
Yeah. Sometimes people have, and I realize we're getting way off the tracks here, but I forgot where I was going with this. Anyway, I'll come back later.
Well,
he's a bitch, ain't it?
Yeah. It was there and then it was gone.
Just wait, kids. That comes to us all eventually.
You need to start grinding up some rhino horn or something.
No shit. I just thought of the thing that's going to save the world of all its problems. Oh, damn, I forgot. What was it?
So, any gun news or any Illinois becoming its own country or district news?
I haven't heard anything.
Monday is one of those days because nothing's happened since Friday, and Friday usually not a whole lot happens. It's usually Tuesday through Thursdays where a lot of stuff happens, if anything happens, because politicians, they got to get their 3-day weekends in too. Half a day Friday, half a day Monday.
Oh, I was watching a thing. The records for politicians is so horrible. Like how much they actually show up to any of the things they're supposed to or vote on and all that. And most of them are either show up for like the bare minimum that they have to, so they're not docked pay. But some of them even take like the pay docs because they're like getting so much more money and other things.
Right.
Like they don't even care. Like
It is depressing to see somebody speaking, whether it be in the House or the Senate, and through the camera you see there's no, in the background, there's nobody sitting there. There's nobody there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the person speaking. None of his associates are there. And then, 2 or 3 people up at the main, lectern, whoever has the master of ceremonies or whatever, and their assistants, and that's it.
There's
Just so they can say that they spoke before the Senate, although none of the other senators were there. Well, then what's the point in speaking? Just so you can say you got your words on the official record.
There's lots of things in our politics that are extremely sad.
More than sad, just pathetic.
That AOC, that Muslim chick from Minnesota.
I like AOC actually now. So I used to hate her. I actually love her now. You know that? I actually love her. I think she's the best thing that will ever happen to New York and probably ever. For real. She is a time bomb waiting to go off. And I think when she does, it's going to wake so many people up in New York. And then they're going to be like, oh, we're not making this mistake again. So I think they need a wake-up call. Like sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And I think she's like that final leaping point to where things are going to go real bad.
I'm shocked, and maybe I shouldn't be, that that as a whole, our the United States is so close to taking the next step from what we're currently in, what I'm going to call soft socialism, but over to actual true socialism. It shocks me that we're actually on the precipice of that happening.
Well, we actually remember the Cold War, Dano. That's the thing. None of these people grew up with the real threat of like nuclear destruction and, never had to hide under practice an air drill where they had to hide underneath their desk at school because of they lived next to a military base and the threat of nuclear war was real. Like they didn't have to worry about anything like that. They don't know what socialism was. They don't know what the wall was. They don't know what was going on in Russia and how many Russians were starved and were murdered. And like they have no idea of all that socialist stuff. They think that guy Hugo Chavez or whatever was some kind of like hero. I see those shirts, like everyone's wearing his shirt or something and stuff, right? Yeah. And that guy was like, he was killing homosexuals. Like he wanted to kill homosexuals and was it Christians and like that guy was like a mass murderer, like that, like that guy was a bad guy. He was like another Hitler.
Yep.
Now I read what was, I'm told, the original her AOC's Green New Deal, whatever the fuck it was.
Green piece of shit.
I read the version that wasn't polished. And I was appalled. The woman ain't all that intelligent is about as far as I'm going to take that. But how the fuck do people like this get elected? I mean,
oh no, like literally her deal would basically ban like all air travel and like all like ship travel pretty much. Like so there would be like all the container ships going back and forth and cruise ships and all that stuff would pretty much stop. So the whole cruise ship and ferrying industry and all the communities that rely on basically ships to go back and forth across these lakes and for trade and all that, like all that would stop. Like, right? Like railroads would stop, just even like public travel, just like commercial flights would stop.
So we go back to like 1491.
Yeah, like real, because like the technology to do like the requirements and all that like doesn't exist. Like there's no way we can do what that Green Deal says that we need to be doing.
But the crazy part is by somebody submitting a bill like that, it says, well fine, give me a compromise. Give me a compromise to my bill, and maybe we can meet in the middle. It's like you can't meet in the middle on something that's that extreme. No. My compromise bill is no fucking way. Excuse me, no way.
Yeah, remember she's like New York bartender, right? She's probably like never even owned a car. She's used to like walking from her like apartment down like Madison Avenue and like around the corner to her bar, like walking everywhere, right? Like you know, like everything's just like a couple blocks away. So
Isn't the world like New York City?
in what's that?
Isn't the world like New York City where you can just
Yeah,
walk to
yeah.
whatever you need?
Yeah, exactly. Like if I want to walk to the store right now, I just get up and I walk my 20 miles to the store. Like it's no big deal. Like you know. Uh, yeah.
Anyway, back to where this started at. I hope this guy doesn't have to suffer tons for whatever the situation was that got him arrested, just for having that arsenal of 2 guns and the cache of ammunition of 300 rounds.
Like that's not even a range day. Like that's not even a range. That's not even just an outing. Like that's like 300 rounds. It's
When I'm
just
going to the range with the kids, if I got stopped by those people, they'd be pissing in their pants because I'd be carrying a couple thousand rounds and probably a dozen guns. Plus, I'd be putting them into the hands of children.
I don't know, just the way they worded it and everything was just so biased and like we all heard it and it was sad. And like I said, that could have been any one of us traveling to some gun competition across the country and you know, and something like this could have happened over a road rage or who knows what incident or someone like I said, someone just doesn't like a sticker. Oh, he's got a Trump sticker on his back of his truck or whatever, some political or whatever gun sticker. I mean, it doesn't take much, and nowadays you just can't trust the goodness of just everyday people, you know, out in the wild. You don't know who you're going to run into. And these extremists and stuff have been known to do this the most dirtiest tactics and stuff like that. So, but we will follow up with that maybe by Wednesday when we have early watch on Wednesday. There'll be more news about it. The guy's supposed to be arraigned in court today, so we'll see what comes out about it. But I have a feeling this guy, all charges are going to be dropped, and we're going to find out that there was some funny business going on here.
I would say so, yeah, because the minute they said that they found a handgun locked in a box, like, wait a minute.
Yeah, the handgun was in a case, and so was the rifle. Like everything was all cased up. So that's what I don't get is like who the hell pulls out a gun out of a case and then like points it at somebody or something, and then goes through the trouble of putting it back in the case, locking it back up, and like I don't know. There's just some funny stuff going on.
Was there a rifle involved?
Yeah, an AR-15 with 2 magazines.
Okay, but those are banned at that state's level, and that's where the quote unquote offense happened. So if it's a state judge,
11 gun offenses. 11. They basically threw the book out of every little thing they could.
Right, they stack the charges.
Yep.
But being a state judge, they're required to enforce state law, which includes that's an assault weapon, which is banned. So he's, as a bare minimum, he's going to get charged with that. Now down the road, if he can get the support of a Second Amendment organization, and they take that to the federal level, it'll get overturned if they can get it to that level.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At some point, some of these cases need to be taken on to the Supreme Court if you get the Supreme Court to hear them.
Right.
There's several instances where the 9th District are completely backwards to what some of the other districts over on this side of the country have ruled on. I mean, they're appellate court absolutely opposite rulings. So I'm surprised that ain't already been brought up. and I can't remember what it was about now, but one court, and I think it's the fourth, said that whatever this action is constitutionally protected, and then the ninth said it wasn't. And I don't know how the Supreme Court can let that stand.
Well, the case that comes to my mind is a case I read in the American Rifleman magazine about a guy who got saved because his pistol was stainless, and he got accused of brandishing a weapon or something, and I can't remember how it came about, but the whole story behind it. But he got accused of basically something and got pulled over at gunpoint and arrested and everything. And the only thing that saved him is that the person's false statement was claiming that he pointed like a black gun like right in their face, so they obviously got like a good look at the gun, because I guess it was like something that happened in person, like right in their face. But like the gun he had on him was like all stainless, bright, shiny stainless. And that's the only thing that saved him from those false allegations. If his gun would have been black, he would have been in jail. Like he would have been gone, right? And so after I remember reading about that case, and then this is something kind of, this was like very similar to me. When I read it, that's the thing that came up in my mind. The first thing that came up in my mind, and I was like, oh, this is another one of those things. This is another one of those things, like where someone's just making that false accusation because of a road rage or something. Oh, like, oh, he pointed a gun at me. I'm going to get him tied up by highway patrol for, hours and ruin his whole day. And they're not even thinking maybe about the consequences, or even know if the guy really has a gun or not, right? Like, they're just making it up. Oh, he pointed a gun at me. Aha, I'm ruining his day.
It does bother me that it's just one person's individual word can be treated as golden fact by law enforcement. Now, they're supposed to check to verify that it is indeed fact, but often there's a whole lot of harm done in that process. Where
Hey,
and
I'll be
also
right back.
what they say is they did X. Nothing happens to them if they're wrong.
Don't you know the golden rule, Dano? The first one who calls 911 wins.
Yeah, I know. Well, anything else for today?
No, it's 9 a.m. I think that's about it. I don't have any other news stories other than just that one and then the Brazil one. I was hoping you guys would come with some stuff.
Yeah. I took a peek last night. I didn't really find much.
Yeah, I didn't find much over the weekend either.
It's that weekend thing.
I am glad my internet's working good. I am still going to plan on calling my internet company today and seeing if what's going on. I really do think there's something wrong with my router or my modem, whatever, and so hopefully I can get that replaced or fixed, and then maybe I can actually put together a video.
Ta-da!
I tried to go live yesterday. We were building some guns, so I figured I'd go live and kind of open up a lobby for people to jump in, and if they wanted to watch a gun being built. But it would last 10 to 20 minutes, and then my internet would shut off, and by the time I would reset my modem and be able to jump back in, it wouldn't be live anymore. So I gave up after like 3 attempts. I was like, nope, I'm done. But apparently I heard the internet was messing up for everyone across the country yesterday, so maybe that was just a thing.
Yeah, I wasn't on the internet until very late at night yesterday. So I don't know.
Shit, my coffee pot runs dry.
Let's see here. I got so Texas Governor Abbott signs tenants' gun rights bill that protects tenants' rights by prohibiting no firearms clauses in residential leases. So I guess you can't say. Let's see here. The Supreme Court was clear in 2008 when it ruled the Second Amendment protects the rights of individuals to have firearms in their homes for self-defense, said Tara Mika, Texas State Director for the NRA-ILA. House Bill 302 is an important piece of legislation that ensures Texans' fundamental rights are protected no matter where they live. The measure, House Bill 302, was sponsored by Representative Dennis Paul and Senator Brian Hughes. It protects tenants' rights to possess lawfully owned firearms and ammunition in dwelling units and on manufactured home lots. The bill also protects tenants' rights to transport their firearms between their personal vehicles and those locations. House Bill 302 will be a unique law among America's 50 states. It was filed in response to tenants who alerted NRA-ILA that the Texas State Rifle Association about a growing number of lease provision restricting firearms possession. The new law will take effect September 1st and will only affect future lease agreements. So basically, a landlord can't tell you, oh, you can't have guns on this property anymore or whatnot, is what it sounds like. So that's a good thing.
I wonder how if that is any relationship to like public housing, let's say on the federal level, because it's all funded by the federal, even though it may be managed by your state. That in my state of Illinois, the public housing units, they are not allowed to have firearms in public housing.
Yeah,
It's common knowledge that Illinois really fucking sucks.
I know that they had a huge problem with people trading food stamps for firearms, so they had to make that illegal and made sure to tell you on the 4473 that, that not to do that.
Yet people sell their food stamp cards every month. And the common rate, at least in my area, is 50 cents on the dollar. And you ask, well, gee, Dan, how do you know that? It's because I worked for 6.5 years in a homeless shelter. And I kept wondering why these guys kept eating at the homeless shelter, 3 meals a day, and yet they had food stamp cards. Well, at least for a little while.
So I heard a thing. I don't know if this was old or not, because sometimes people like post stuff on social media that's years old, right? And it's like no longer relevant news. But apparently, the Declaration of Independence is hate speech on Facebook now. So have you guys heard that?
Oh God,
No.
I'm posting it every damn day.
Yeah. So apparently, like if you post the Declaration of Independence in a post, you'll get automatically zapped from Facebook, like from their algorithm. So I just thought that was quite interesting. If you just copy and paste the Declaration of Independence, supposedly, again, this is, I'm just going off what I'm seeing.
Well, give me a few minutes.
G-Webs, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for the link. Thanks for doing early watch again. Good to see a show in the morning. Even though you're not talking about guns, are they?
We do talk about guns a lot of times.
Only today.
A little bit, anyway.
A little bit. We try and do a lot of the 2A news, whatever we see in the 2A news. That's what we really try and do, but sometimes it's hard to find that stuff.
Are you going out and looking or doing filters? Because you can do those like different methods. You can either go to a search engine and do just a filtered search, but then you can subscribe to hashtags or keywords. But then there's got to be whole systems or whole platforms, whole tools that just search news for you, right?
So how I do it, I probably do it way differently than everyone else. Is how I do it is like throughout the day or the week or whatever, as I'm scrolling through my Instagram, I follow a lot of pretty proactive gun rights groups and pages and stuff like that. So I'm trying to catch what they're catching, and I'll be saving it to my favorites on Instagram, and the stories that they're bringing up. There's a couple pages that are really good. Like one of them's called 2020 America Matters. Every year their name changes. Like I think when I first started following them, they were like 2017 America Matters, and but every year it'll keep going up. And but this year their name's 2020 America Matters. Awesome page. Um, that's probably that. I get a lot of information from that page that's going on. Like that channel's great. They're the ones who let's see here. They got something posted about the Floyd cart on 2020 America Matters.
See, it all matters about where their filter is, right? What they're trying to get across. Because I'm thinking you could do, if you just only focused on news articles about people that tried to rob a gun shop but always failed because of whatever reason, like too good at security, or they blundered, or police got there really quick, or somebody stopped it, or whatever, right? You could just run stories like that. Would that give the perception that gun shops are basically like it's really difficult to rob? Like almost all robberies are foiled. In whatever direction.
Search, yeah, it'd definitely be biased. I know when I go to Google and I just type in gun news, it just literally just those two words, gun news, that like almost everything that comes up is pretty biased.
It would be neat sometime, since we're all different, have everybody in a chat that is comfortable doing it screen share, and then do a Google search for the same thing and see how varied or how different each of our results are going to be.
Oh, just because of analytics and location and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, exactly. Google isn't a big machine, or a big simple machine where if you push a lever, a result happens. It's a whole bunch of billions of little complicated machines that are watching us specifically. So if I search for something, the results are a result of all the different things I've ever searched for and what it thinks is the best answer for me. Where if you're searching for different stuff, which you are, then you're going to get you should get different results. Now, if there is a bias, then sometimes you type in, what frustrates me is you start typing in whatever it might be, gun, space, some letters, and then it starts to autocomplete. Like, the bias in Google is that none of that is ever actually like anything with any like interest or use to like us as gun owners. It's always some sort of like gun debate, gun violence, gun murders, gun illegality, being illegal. Like, it's always some negative thing about firearms. It's never like gun cleaner, gun shooting sports, Or maybe that's just me because I search for so much Second Amendment stuff. Maybe if I never search for Second Amendment stuff and you typed in Google, it would all be like gun accessory, gun flashlight, gun grip.
No, like I've tried variations of like 2A news, like leaving guns out of it, the word gun, right? And I've tried firearms, thinking like, oh, maybe I'll get a search for firearms, and it's still pretty biased. At least my searches seem to be. I have to go like automatically skip the first like 4 pages and just click on page 5 before I'll start to get to like more local, like pro gun stories, like, oh, this person saved their family, or that, this and that.
I often do that too. Go straight to the bottom, click on whatever it is, 4 or 5 that it lets you skip to, and then just ignore the first garbage that they're trying to shove at me.
Oh, and I also click on the, I go to tools, and I'll click anytime, and then I'll usually click like past week or past month, something like that, instead of just letting it do. So that way I don't get results from like 5 years ago.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I'll click like the past month, and then I'll just go down and then click on page 3 or 4 or whatever, like pretty much the last pages, and that's where I'll get the real news, or at least like the more pro gun.
What about you guys?
I use Google search terms, where you can put in any number of terms and it will give me a daily feedback of things it's found out on the internet that contains those search terms that just appeared that particular day.
You mean like it emails you, or you have to go somewhere to get that result?
No, I have it email it to me.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think that's like following a search term, right? You can set it up to as many, like you can have one email send you like 4 or 5 search terms, or you could have each search term be a separate email, right?
Right.
Yeah, I used that for a while. It got, I mean, it was useful, but then, I don't know, I just quit paying attention to it, I guess. I guess I was only doing it for specific things. Do you end up looking at that often, like regularly? Is it a part of your habit or your routine?
I look at it every day. A lot of times I'll get several articles on the exact same topic, but they're from different sources. Say like, Illinois gun control might be one search term that I use. And then, if there's an issue that's come up recently on the FOID cards, I might have, two downstate newspapers and a Chicago newspaper that might report on that topic. And I'll get, on the same day, and then it'll pop up in that day's results. And then I also use services that are usually less timely, but still sometimes gather information that I was not aware about, such as I can't remember exactly what they call it, but the NRA ILA has a thing where they send you state and national legislation that's being proposed. Although sometimes it might be a week to 2 weeks to a month behind, just depending on various circumstances. And there are some others out there that offer a similar sort of service. I forget if it's Firearms Policy Coalition that does something like that. That I am so subscribed to.
And I'm guessing that geographically where we're located at, especially on Google searches and all that. So I noticed like I'll hardly ever get any news from like Vermont or New Hampshire or East Coast stuff, right? Like any news that I seem to get is like California, Arizona, Nevada, like more like West Coast and Midwest type stuff. Like, so geographically, you might have to type in specific states or something like that in your searches.
Even though we have the general term gun control is just one phrase alone. You're exactly right. I'm not getting the Northeast or the East or the West or the Mountain States. I'm only getting gun control of things what I'll call in the Midwest.
And that's why I'm thankful. That's why I like the Instagram, is because I follow a lot of people, and those people are diverse, and they're all over the country. And it's real easy as I'm scrolling through my Instagram to see a post from one of those guys, and they're like, "Oh, this is going on in New Hampshire right now. You need a, like I was just barely reading that. Was it New Hampshire? Gosh, I can't. No, it was Vermont. They're trying to do a 24-hour waiting period on gun buys to make you like a 24-hour cooldown period. That's like trying to get passed through Vermont right now. So, and I never would have heard about that if it wasn't for Instagram. None of the Google searches I did last week, nothing showed anything about that story. I didn't see it posted anywhere except for on Instagram.
But something like that is useful because how many times, think of it for our convenience. You're in a gun shop and you're making your decision or whatever, and you're not angry at the time, right? And then somebody comes in and they're angry and they want that gun right away. And that gun shop guy's like, "Oh man, I'm angry for you, but I can't sell you the gun because of the damn laws." And then that interrupts you, and then you get angry and you want to buy a gun. So it's really a cycle. So I'm glad they're making that illegal for me.
Well, it certainly has made Illinois the perfect utopia in this country to live in, with us having a 3-day wait, so you really cool off.
Yeah. By the way, has Presker signed that into law as far as changing pistols from 24 to 48?
It's not. No, it went the other way. Long guns went to the pistol.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
3
Where
days.
they're both 3 days now. Because God knows I couldn't use any of my previous firearms for any dirty business.
I got a story out of Illinois. I don't know why you Illinoisans haven't talked about this. Harold Meyer of Illinois, a 74-year-old who has never been charged with or convicted of any crime, was forced to surrender his FOID card to dispose himself of his firearms and to complete a firearm disposition record disclosing the make, model, the serial numbers of his firearms, and what he had done with them, all within 48 hours per state police. Only it was a mistake. Thus, the Floyd Act was allowed a police error to deprive Mr. Meyer entirely of his constitutional right. Lawsuit filed.
What was the mistake? I mean, other than he didn't do anything wrong, I'm assuming.
So let me see the Floyd. Okay,
That's like, no different than a warrant that's executed on the wrong address. I mean, yeah, errors will happen, and it's terrible that it does happen, but they will happen.
so this doesn't go in. I'd have to dig deeper. This doesn't go in to what the mistake was. Maybe it was just someone with a similar name or whatnot, right? But it was obviously a mistake. This guy wasn't the one. He didn't do anything wrong, but he had to, give up his guns and do all this stuff, and but that's out of Illinois, and that's a story I never would have heard of.
Well, he's really old, and old people shouldn't be able to protect themselves, I guess.
I feel like if you have the name that's really similar to a criminal, isn't that kind of the same as being really similar to a criminal?
I mean, because you are similar, you have the same name. There you go.
I mean, that's not the police's fault. That could happen.
This guy ain't the case that's going after the Floyd card as being unconstitutional, is it?
It doesn't. Let me. I don't know. Let's see here. The Floyd. Okay, the suit seeks for 4 remedies for this infringement. It seeks a declaratory judgment ruling the Floyd Act violates the Second and 14th Amendments.
Yeah.
It asks for a preliminary and permanent injunction stopping the Floyd Act's enforcement. Additionally, the suit seeks cost of filing the suit and any other relief the court deems just and appropriate. The case of One Gun Save Life member shows how drastically the Floyd Act infringes on that right. In compliance with the act, the member recently sought to renew his Floyd card, but the police denied his application and revoked his card, claiming to have suddenly found a battery conviction in his record. He has no such conviction, and the courts have no record of one. Nevertheless, because he no longer had a Floyd card, he was forced to disarm. Something is very wrong with the law that causes a law-abiding Illinois resident to dispose himself of his firearms because of a government record-keeping error, said John Bach, executive director of Gun Saves Lives. This episode should really reveal to everyone the Floyd Act's basic unconstitutionality, but efforts are underway in Illinois legislature to raise the cost of Floyd cards. With the help of the NRA, Gun Save Lives, and seek to end once and for all this infringement on the constitutional rights of law-abiding gun owners in Illinois. So that's the article about that. So.
Let me tag a little something on. We discussed briefly last week, I think it was, that, and for those that aren't aware, currently we get a 10-year time period that our Floyd cards are good for, I think it's like $10, Tony, is that right? Is that what you remember?
$10 and $11.50 if you do it online.
Yep. And they want to change that to 5 years instead of 10 years, and to go from that $10 to somewhere between $250 and $500. So that's a joyous thing.
Right. Then you have your $150 plus course costs for your concealed carry on top of that.
Oh, I wasn't talking about concealed. I was just talking about the right to buy a gun and ammunition, period.
That's no big deal. Poor people don't have money, so they don't get robbed.
Right.
That does sound like the liberals' train of thought.
Yeah, because you've got the 2-day course for the first timer, 20 hours worth of training. I'm using air quotes, training for the class and the cost of that. And then you've got the $153 and some odd cents you pay to the state for a 5-year permit that you may or may not get. So you have to pay it, and you still can get rejected after all that. You can pay for the class, pay the fee, pay to get. And by the way, you got to have the Floyd card off right from the get-go, so you got to pay for all that, still to get rejected and denied at the end. Meaning now you've paid $500 to $800 for possibly nothing.
Look, they're pretty lenient on that. They let you and me have one, so They ain't so
Well,
particular.
but one of us has a questionable track record, and the other one has a track record of which we cannot discuss. So,
I know what kind of how good government is at record keeping and how that can affect you. I mean, my ex-wife, her cousin, long time ago, who looked similar, knew her birth date and everything, got arrested, used her information, and even though she got cleared of it because the booking photos showed that it wasn't her and stuff like that, still to this day she has to carry around papers with her if she gets pulled over, because basically two of the exact same names still come up in the computer, and one of them still has a warrant out for him, and she has to prove like, oh, it's the exact same name and birthday and everything as me, but that's my cousin. That, you know what I mean? So here's the paper saying it's not me, and so she literally has to carry papers with her anytime she ever gets pulled over or goes to buy a gun or anything. Has to jump through a lot of extra hoops, because there's still a warrant out for her, but for a different person. If that makes sense.
and I'm assuming has the hope that whoever pulls her over is going to be willing to take 2 minutes to read the paper she hands him or her, or say, "Well, we'll let the judge figure it out."
If it's a notarized document and they ignore it, then they're going to be able to be sued for false arrest. I would say. Well, so far, I've got 2 likes on my Declaration of Independence.
Okay, so yeah, so I looked that up, right? Because I saw it posted on Instagram on a couple different people's. So that was actually from last year, on July 4th of last year, is I guess when that took place, of July 4th on 2018 is when people were posting that, and then Facebook was banning it as hate speech. So I don't know if that's still going on or not, but that story is a year old. But again, that's the one problem with social media. This is a year old story, and they were basically posting it in the last couple of days as if it was real, happening right now, which it still could be. It could still be an ongoing thing, and maybe that's why they're posting it again. I don't know.
When you use cookie cutters to manage a massive system, it's going to massively screw up, and that's a perfect example of that. If you have a algorithm out there that set three yeses equals a no, and then that means do this action.
Well,
It has no reason. It has no forethought. It has no intelligence. It just does what it's told to do.
That's kind of the same way that Big Brother watches us, man. They listen to keywords or listen for keywords. And if you say, I don't know however many it needs to be, but whatever keywords, you get yourself on the list.
And that's where context and the way things are phrased can significantly change the meaning of a sentence.
Well, they had an article about that years ago when they built the NSA call center here. That like most of the data in there was absolute garbage. That it was all video gamers saying stuff like, "I'm going to plant the bomb and I'm going to,"
right,
stuff, right? Like it was all. There was this like all those key phrases and lingos and stuff was like all wasted data. It literally all of it was just video game guys.
Exactly. Or people that, in certain groups, it's common to say, yeah, I'm going to kill you. And in fact, what they mean is I'm going to beat you at the basketball game. I'm going to kill you. They're talking about the game. They're not talking about the person. It's just ways of speaking. And an algorithm is never going to get that.
Speaking of video games, I was listening to my grandson and a couple of his friends. They were doing Minecraft. Or something else. I know he likes Minecraft. And the kid that was over there is saying whenever he gets into a place he don't want to be, he tells my grandson to kill him off so he can start over.
Right. Context, it matters.
Well, in the moment you just said, you think algorithms like can only do one seesaw? I mean, those logarithms are being studied over decades now, so they can definitely tell context. And I hear what you're saying. I think Clover, what's the word he likes? I like die, right? You know, there's like a million uses for the word die, and that's one where the logarithms have to be able to interpret that. Otherwise, you know, that doesn't have it has so many different meanings. Same with shoot, really.
But yeah, but that's how, in the meantime, people are getting, I'm going to use the term hurt. Maybe that's over.
Let me put it this way: if shoot was such a big deal, like the algorithms couldn't handle shoot, then what do photographers do?
They take pictures.
Just saying, every time they use the word shoot,
Right.
then we would be getting blacklisted just like us, right?
Well, I think that's the argument they were making in the article I read here about the big database center they built here for the NSA, is that like literally they had to build it so big and to be able to store so much because 99% of like everything or even more than that was just such irrelevant data that needed to be sifted through and stuff that, like they were gathering so much just incomprehensible data, because in order for that an algorithm to study something, like they have to kind of basically capture that, right? And then they're going to send it through something to probably study that, and then if it throws up a red flag, then it's probably going to go to a person, right? And then what incentive does this person have to say, oh no, that's nothing, that's just some guys talking about a video game, versus if he got something wrong and it turned out to be a credible threat and he missed that, well, then he might lose his job over that. So, like, potentially that sets up a scenario where everything's a red flag just
I
because
don't believe this.
of a job. Better safe than sorry attitude, right?
No, I don't believe it. I've worked at AOL. AOL was a certain size, and there was I knew what I was not in the department, but I was adjacent to the department that dealt with what you're talking about. There's no way, unless Google has call centers of capable therapists, there's no way that they police the internet and are aware of search results or doing anything at that level. If anything, there's a group of people running logarithms and taking big old brush strokes at the internet. They're certainly not people paying attention to specific things online. We're only talking about English for crying out loud.
A real red flag, right? Like a certain key phrase or something, right?
There's nothing you can say on anything on the search engine that's going to not have repercussions that would need a call center's worth of human beings, is what I'm saying. You can't, there's not human beings involved in levels where people like to think about. I just don't think so. Like I say, I know how big AOL was, right, at the time, and what was involved, because AOL was a membership system. You joined AOL and you signed a terms of service. They were responsible for an environment that they were that they fostered or created or whatever, the chat rooms and the communities and all that. So if someone were doing something illegal or threatening or whatever, all the things that require law enforcement, there was like a whole department. There was like a section of AOL dedicated to that stuff. Right, like I say, I was above that. I mean, I physically in the building. I was on the second floor of where that stuff was. So I went on smoke breaks, and I knew people that were in that department and what they did. I hung out in there. So there's just no possible way that Google. I know the scale of Google, and there's no possible way on a free service that they have any obligation. They could never have gotten to the size they are if they have any obligation or interest other than making money. And doing their thing, but there's no way that they've got people monitoring that. And those people at this point would have to be, like I say, therapists and law enforcement capable. Like they'd have to have such credential and responsibility to be able to make decisions like you're talking about.
Well, then how? Like, then if something gets really, really flagged, it doesn't eventually go to a live person, you think? You don't think?
Even flagged. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a search phrase. What?
Okay, so let's say something
stuff
reported on, or like reported as something, or like a certain keyword phrase or a certain title heading, whatnot, that just is really alarming or really draws a red flag. Like, let's say a video gamer is playing a video game and he calls the title of his video or Instagram post or Facebook post or whatever, like nuking New York or something. Like if that drew like a really like that keyword, key phrase, like whatever it may be, if you don't think a computer sees that and says like, oh, this is like something we're really looking for, for it, like New York mixed with the word nuke and stuff like that. Let's make sure a live person sees this and sends that to a live person. That's the way I always thought it was, is that the computer spotted it first and then send it to a person.
It can't be that way. Think about it just because they're in business. So Google is in business with somebody else, right? It doesn't even matter if it's Yahoo or Netscape or whoever it is. If they literally had something that was that simple to maneuver, that's a seesaw. Then you just hire 10 people to start putting in search phrases, and Google has to hire dozens and hundreds of people to deal with that. And you put your competitor out of business by sitting 10 people in a room and abusing their system. So they dealt with that in whenever they first figured it all out. And I suspect they dealt with it by saying, you can use this tool. You can come up and search for things, but we're certainly not responsible because there's no possible way, dude. Think about how many people use Google just in one little, take any segment, take a city, take a freaking library, and think of the weird stuff people are going to search for. And again, to have somebody if somebody just logs in and searches for how to make a bomb and logs off, if Google spent any resources trying to deal with that, they'd be out of business Friday. Because there's so many ways that would just not even inadvertently it would inadvertently be abused to the point where you put a company out of business. There's no way they search for that stuff. And what would the police do if every time somebody typed in, how do I make a bomb?
Google, the NSA, right? Isn't that what the NSA, like their whole big database center does down here? I'm pretty sure with the Homeland Protection Act, that they're basically allowed to sift through this data, and then
But again, when you're talking about populations the size of countries and the planet, which is what NSA is tasked with, then they're looking at the number of times somebody logs onto a computer and says, I want to make a bomb, based on some logarithm with like the number of times FBI finds somebody making a bomb, and then there's some blip when a thing goes out of norm, but I mean, I can't imagine. No, I mean, that's like saying, can they stop every carrier pigeon and read what's on it? I guess, like thinking about John Wick here, like they can technically do that, catch every carrier pigeon that flies around, but there's no point. You'd waste so much time doing it that any valuable information you got you'd see the consequence of the information before you interpreted what the information meant. I think when you tag stuff on YouTube, it goes to logarithms, and they look and they see if it's a credible source. If it's somebody that just goes around flagging stuff, you get probably points down, like you're crying wolf. And if you never flagged anything before, then you're taken with a grain of salt. And if you're prime candidate for selling stuff to people, they value your opinion. As soon as you tag something, it gets the weight of an anvil, and and then things happen. So I mean, I guess there's possibility that they have a call center somewhere, but can you imagine the amount of stuff that happens on Google? I mean, just in search, but not even that. They've got the Hangouts, and then they've got Google Plus for some reason. They've got, the Hangouts, I said, but then YouTube, right? Just the comments on YouTube. That's just amazing. Like even if they only took 2 calls a day, I mean, how many people, or 2% of the calls a day, how many people would that be? Even if they did 0.2%, that would still be a giant call center, I bet. And that's just in English. And Google is international.
That whole keyword thing may be just a conspiracy theory that started around the whole advent of the Homeland Security bit. But I don't know. I don't know how in the hell they could possibly monitor all the stuff. But there again, that might be to their advantage.
So a judge ordered Amazon to turn over recordings of a guy's Amazon Alexa unit. because that recorded either that guy being murdered or him murdering someone or something like along those lines, some sort of crime. It recorded some sort of crime. I forget the minutia, but it recorded some sort of crime, and the judge ordered Amazon to turn over the recordings on that, and then that basically proved to everyone that Amazon, those Alexa units, are always recording you and recording what's going on around you, right? And and people are like, "Oh my gosh, like Alexa's doing this. Amazon's like listening to everything we say." But a lot of people, I don't think, realize that your phone's pretty much already doing that to you, depending on what permissions and what apps you have. Like free apps, like if you have any free apps, you're probably almost guaranteed to be everything you're recording, like saying, is being recorded around your phone. Every conversation, every text, because that's what free apps, that's why they're free, is because they sell your identity and they sell your info, right? So I don't know, I think if Amazon is like recording everything.
There's a big difference between selling your info and your identity and selling every single text and every single conversation. It's just, I mean, when they turn on access to your mic and your stuff, doesn't mean they're also going to record everything. Try recording just a sound recording on your phone for more than a couple of minutes. It would fill your phone in a moment, right? So your phone's not constantly streaming, just like a Hangout, hidden in the background of your thing. Think about how much a Hangout takes of your phone's minutes each month, right? If you got unlimited, think when you used to have monthly, or when you got monthly or rated, how much does a Hangout? It's not possible for them to pull all of your data. It's not possible for your phone to record all your data. When they sell your info, they may be selling data about you, but it's certainly not everything you've ever talked about. So don't be unrealistic. Still, technology has limits. There's only so much bandwidth and only so much copper can do yet.
On that note, with the Hangout, it surprised me to find out that I can be in the Hangout on my crappy ass connection better than I can watch it on YouTube. I never did understand that one.
Wait, you can do what on that? Sorry, I got a text right then. It's a better connection with Hangout than it is with YouTube?
It's better when my internet's extremely slow. I can do the Hangout, but I can't listen to it.
I'm thinking this Hangout is crazy. I only have, for reference, when I worked at AOL, again, that was a long time ago now, 97 to 2000. And so that was freaking 20 years ago. And this was, well, I guess it's gone, it should be less expensive now. But this tech that we've got here, I helped him install that one time in a room so we could talk to other cities. And we had the fastest internet on the planet here in Tucson. That's where they kind of invented internet stuff. So we had like some of the backbone of the internet. We had nuclear missiles here that were all connected to these big internet backbones that started it all. So we should have had the fastest internet possible back then. And then setting this stuff up to like Washington, D.C. and other states that had, good internet. And it was shitty compared to this. I mean, it was okay, but this is insane compared to what that was. And I think that it's because they've just gone nuts with this. I'm surprised they're not selling this more. You would think this, businesses would buy this all the time. I guess they're just all using it for free. But it's got to be because they've just done the tech to where, audio really isn't that big. So I would think audio is pretty easy to stream, but the video is crazy.
So I'm going to offer a challenge. Since we'll be back on Wednesday, I want to offer a challenge to everyone listening. It looks like we got 12 listeners out there right now. So I'm offering a challenge. Pick something that is totally off the wall that you would never even consider buying. You don't need, like, let's say, I doubt most of you guys are horse guys, so pick a horse saddle or something, right? Just pick something totally random. Have a conversation in your house, like with your wife or significant other or whatever. Just talk about it, about a horse saddle, about how you want to buy a horse saddle for your horse or something, right? And just mention that out there while your phone's sitting there, and just throw that out there. And then just over the next 24 hours, pay attention to the ads that appear on your Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And then tell me that they're not like listening to every single word you say. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. I'd be curious to see what everyone who's listening right now.
Well, there's a difference between listening and keeping track or recording. So yeah, they could be listening. That's for damn sure. They definitely take access to your mic and everything. And there could easily be something in the software that, just listens to the microphone or whatever, and accumulates a bunch of these words into some temp file. And then if you say some word that isn't like the, and, is, was, right, the normal words, if you keep saying some word enough, then it might remember it. And that's when it does, you say it stores information about you and sells it. That's the kind of stuff I'm sure it does. So it's not going to take everything you say, but it's sure enough going to take the stuff that makes money. And if you say, like you're saying, horse saddle or pony saddle or something, right? Like something weird, or whatever, like round toothbrush or something like that. And then you start seeing it. I mean, everybody's noticed that already. It's almost that John.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if they can do that, though, just imagine what else they could do that we aren't really in tune with or really know. Like, just imagine what they're hiding from us. Like
the other way, they put stuff into the programming, into the media. When they know that it gets disseminated to enough people and people are going to watch it over and over, then there's got to be stuff in there that they figured out how to do it the other way. Not just listen to what we're saying. They're listening to make sure what they're programming is effective.
I had heard, and it may not even be a true story, where that Alexa or whatever the hell it was called the cops. And the cops showed up at somebody's house who had this. And like I said, I don't know that it's true or not. It's been a couple of years, I think. And I decided right then and there, that ain't for me. If you want to plan nefarious stuff against whomever, you need to go out into some sort of abandoned bunker and leave your cell phones and everything at home to make these plans.
Oh, I can't even imagine all the crimes that have probably been solved by just nothing but technology alone, like triangulation of cell phones, stuff like that.
Yes, people are going to go on the run. You should have a burner cell phone or something. I have a hard time remembering to take my damn phone with me whenever I go anywhere because I don't use it.
I have a hard time remembering my phone number because it's not something like I give out often, or so I have a hard time just sometimes like, oh wait, what's my phone number? Because I just never call it. It's just not something.
I remember mine because for all my freaking business I do online, they require a phone number. Like, I just got a turkey permit yesterday. I had to enter the phone number, and it's fairly easy to remember anyway. But for the state sites, autofill don't do it. There was a few times I had to get and look it up to give it to somebody, but I've had this number for, God, I don't know how many years. A number of years.
Well, let's see. It's getting up close to the top of the third hour. I think we are going to call it the show. G-Webs, do you have any shout outs? Do you have anything that you want to coming up? Any Minuteman universities or anything like that?
Gotta find the mute. No, because the rest of the patches should get here. So I've given myself a minute to ship 266 of those. So getting ready for that to show up, and then I'll be setting up that new machine I drove to California for. So no, I think I'll send out a couple of more emails. I'd like to continue the series, but whatever. I gotta go pay some bills. So I'm going to be setting up that new machine and trying to sell shit. Stay tuned.
I assume it's a California compliant version.
This is basically it's a router, right? So I think it's what's yellow, DeWalt. It's a DeWalt router. but on a 3-dimensional plotter, so it can go left and right and up and down. And then I guess you plug it into a computer and then give it like a 3-dimensional drawing with some kind of like, I don't know what the name would be for like this, the commands to, like, you know, if it digs a hole, let's say in a piece of a shape, it knows to come up out of the hole with its bit and then around to dig the second hole and not just cut across and ruin the piece. So like, you know, I got to figure out all that, but then it's like 3 foot by 3 foot, so it can do a pretty large, you know, part when it's all done. So I'll be mastering that for a little bit and then creating stuff, and I will be back to 2A stuff as soon as I can afford to keep the roof above me and the ground beneath me.
Well, good luck with that.
Right on. Thanks.
Tony, you got anything coming up?
Early Watch Wednesday, and if somebody else wants to host the Early Watch in Dead's place tomorrow, I'll be in here with you if you want.
Heck yeah, it'd be awesome if someone would step up on Tuesdays. I would do it on Tuesdays, but the offer of having arranged to myself on Tuesdays is too tempting right now to pass up. So that's why I'm not able to host it on Tuesdays. Yeah, but if anyone else wants to step up, host it on Tuesdays or any other days, I have been sending Jimmy a link to these out there, and Jimmy, when he has time, when he's not working and whatnot, he is going to hop into one of these eventually. So it'll be nice to have a visit from him.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Knives over on gunchannels.com has a lobby going over there. Everyday open lobby. Mr. Knives shows that up there for 8 hours a day, sometimes twice a day. Open lobby, posted on the front page. And let's see here, what else we got? Locked and Loaded with HVS. I don't know if last time I saw an HVS show was like over 2 months ago. So I'm not sure if he's taking a break. I know he's done that before.
I'm always worried because they've got all those whales out in the ocean out there, that some whales are going to come by, do a little display or a dance or whatever they do, you know, on one side of the island. Everyone's going to rush over there to see it, and the island will flip over.
Capsize. The island might capsize.
I would be more concerned about tripping and falling into lava.
The floor is lava.
He lives on the side of a volcano, so it could have just spilled over onto him. We wouldn't know.
So, but I hope HVS is doing good, and I hope he comes back, starts posting his show regularly over there on Gun Channels. We have Guns and Geeks with Never Enough Ammo. I'm sure tonight's topic's about nerds. Then we have Outlaw Hatfield, Monday Night Shootout at 11 p.m. Eastern. And then as always, we have the Daily Gun Show at midnight Eastern. And that's the Early Watch. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.
Thanks for hosting.